All right, welcome to another edition of the Fifth Down Sports Show, your extra down of sports coverage, right here on the KJC Radio Network, broadcasting live via Blog Talk Radio, simulcast on the Snowman Digital Media. We are also on Spotify. We are also on YouTube. We are also on any radio streaming device you can get us. We are coming to you live from the Gino Naz studio in West Haven, Connecticut. And we will be getting to some Gino Naz stories later on in the program as we go here. With all the stuff that we have going on. But what a crazy week it has been. What a crazy last couple days it's been. But we'll start the show. We'll get into all the we'll get into the changes with baseball, the rules that have been implemented. We've seen them at the college level affecting the game the way it is, and we'll talk about that as we go here. We will also talk about all the entertainment stuff that's going on, situations at Marvel, situations at Disney, and how Disney is not stopping what they're doing, and it's just laughable at this point. At this point, it's just something to laugh at. Something that is absolutely, it's mind-boggling the way that they have disgraced this once. I don't want to say. I mean, I'll say it because I grew up in the '90s. This once beautiful company that was always the hallmark of wholesome entertainment. What it has turned into, the cesspool that it is now, and it's absolutely laughable. If it wasn't so cringe, it wouldn't be as funny. But it's just so cringe, so over the top that if you don't laugh at it, you're going to cry about it. So that's why we here at Fifth Down, we choose to laugh at it rather than take the other side, because if we actually break it down, it is absolutely sad. There's no way around it. So we'll get to all of that later on in the program. But we open up with today opens up the NFL Combine. And as everybody knows, the NFL Draft is one of my favorite days. It is one of my favorite things. We cover it live on this program. We cover the draft extensively. We are one of those people that the NFL Draft is year-round. We look at, when we watch college football, we're watching to see guys, how are we going to project them to the draft? So that's where we go. So, of course, the Combine starting today is a big part of that. It's a big part of the process. But the difference with what is happening, the way the Combine has evolved over time, it's gotten out of control with how people interpret the Combine. And we've seen it time and time again where people take what happens at the Combine and they use it as their basis, as, oh, what this guy did at the Combine, that proves that improves his draft stock. That's such a false. It's such a false thinking. I mean, we know that it happens. I mean, Al Davis did this for years. Was a Combine guru. If you showed at the Combine that you were better than everyone else, well, Al Davis was going to draft you. Well, Al Davis doesn't exist. Al Davis isn't around anymore. God bless his soul. Just win, baby. All of that. You got to love Al Davis for what Al Davis was. They might as well just put him on the Raiders logo. Like, Al Davis is the Raiders. To me, when I think of the Raiders, the first thing I think of is Al Davis. And so that is but he would be that guy that if you ran a sub 4.2 at the combine, Al Davis was going to draft you, and there were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Nope, this is what matters. We saw it happen time and time again where they just took the fastest guy, and they had the Raiders in the early 2000s. If they had a track meet, the Raiders would have smoked everybody. They would have smoked everybody in a 4x1. It wouldn't have even been close. The way that they were drafting people, they were drafting guys that were basically running subatomic 40-yard dashes, and that's the way the Raiders went about their business. Was if you're the fastest guy, we're taking you. Well, that's kind of that's what the NFL Network is basically promoting to you. Is nope, nothing else matters at the combine. It's just the 40-yard dash. We're going to focus on that. We're going to show you every 40. We're going to hammer it home. We're going to analyze the 40-yard dash. Here's the truth behind the 40-yard dash. Behind all of that. The truth behind that is the 40-yard dash doesn't matter. It does not make a difference. Think about this for a minute. If you're an offensive lineman, if I were telling any offensive lineman, I would tell them, don't even do don't even bother. Don't even bother doing the 40-yard dash. Don't waste your time with it. And if somebody asks you why, if they say, hey, why aren't you doing the 40? You tell them, because if I have to run 40 yards, there's something bigger. There's a bigger problem going on than me having to run. I don't have to run 40 yards ever if you're an offensive lineman. If you're a defensive lineman, if you have to run 40 yards, that means either a guy's caught a pass that's going the other way, that you got to chase him down, or you're running the other way for a touchdown. So there's no reason to do the 40-yard dash doesn't matter for any of those guys. The only positions that the 40-yard dash matters is for cornerbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. That's it. That's the list. That's the list of where the 40-yard dash matters. Now, when you look at the 40-yard dash, there are two ways to interpret it, okay? If a guy runs really fast, if a guy runs a sub 4.2 or sub 4.2, sub 4.25, you're going to look at that's going to jump off the page. Now, that can be interpreted two ways. It can be interpreted as, wow, this guy's really fast, or it can be interpreted as, this guy's really fast. Let's go back and look at the film and see if this guy plays that fast. And that's where it comes down. That's where it can help and hurt you at the same time. Where guys like former Washington receiver, and I forget where he got drafted, but John Ross had one of the fastest 40s we've ever seen, blew away the combine. Okay? People went back and looked at his film, and I said this during my draft prep when people asked me about John Ross. And they said, did you see his 40 time? I said, yeah, but did you see him did you see him play during the regular season? Did you see him play at Washington? Did you see any of that speed? Did you see any of that speed translating on the field? And that's the thing. You're going to look at it and go, all right, this guy runs sub 4.2. Why isn't he running that fast on the field? Where's the disconnect? Because it's not showing up on the film. And that's what you have to ask yourself. If you see a guy all of a sudden just run really fast at the combine, you have to ask yourself, is this guy just a track guy? Or does his play on the field show that kind of speed? Like, all right, this guy's a speedster. All right, this matches my perception of him coming in. The same thing if a guy is a 6'5" wide receiver and runs precise routes and is getting open all the time, but all of a sudden he runs a 4.3, 4.4, and you're like, okay, well, this guy's slow for a wide receiver, but he's always open. Why is he always open? Is he coming out of his cuts better than everybody else? Does he adjust better than everybody else? That's what you want to be looking at when you're looking at these combine numbers. I just talked about offensive linemen. If you have an offensive lineman that does 50 reps on the bench press, and you're like, wow, this guy's really strong, and you go back and you look at the film and he's pancaking people, you're going to be like, all right, this guy is strong. He's a bruiser. If you see that he does 50 reps, you watch the film and he's getting pushed back by defensive linemen, you need to look at, all right, if this guy's that strong, why is he getting pushed back? His technique is probably not as good as it should be. Maybe his footwork needs help. So that's what the combine will tell you. The combine will tell you, all right, this guy does this well, he does that well. But what it tells you is, all right, this guy, does he match? As long as it matches, as long as everything matches up, that's a win at the combine. It's not a win the same way a fast 40 or a lot of reps could be a loss for you. Because if you're doing all of this stuff so well, and you go back to the film and you watch them and they're getting dominated or they're not as fast as they should be, you're going to look at that and go, all right, as an evaluator, as a talent evaluator, your first question should be, why? Why is this happening? Is it a technique thing that we can improve, that can be improved upon? Or is it something fundamental that we can't, that you have to go into other elements of? That's what the combine should be telling you. That's what it should confirm. It should confirm your suspicions. And if they don't, if the combine differs with your initial assessment, then you need to go back, look at the film, and this is, I'm telling you what I do. When I look at the combine, when it's all over with, when these 4 days are over with, I go back, I look at the results, and what I do is I go by each one of my draft prospects, all of them that I'm looking at, and I go, does their combine workout match? Does it match what I perceive of them? If it doesn't, then I go back and look and find as much film as I can on that guy, and I go, all right, well, the film tells me the film is telling me one thing, the combine's telling me another. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, so I've got to find that middle ground, and let's see where we can get there. That's how I break down the combine. And it's not, and that's the key, because look, we all know this. The big time networks that are breaking this down, they have their guys already. They have their guys. All right, we love this guy. So what they do at the combine, it's either going to be the greatest thing that they've ever seen, or if they know that it's not that shocking, they'll go, oh, well, this guy plays differently than what we saw. So in that element of it, in that element of things, that's what I'm trying to tell you is everything about the combine is about your perception. It's about your perception of the athletes that you're seeing. Now, I love watching the combine. I wish they wouldn't break away and go to the dash all the time. Like I don't need to see a 40-yard dash. Like I could care less about guys running the 40-yard dash. Now look, you're talking to a track guy. You're talking to somebody who ran college track. Like a 40-yard dash. I've seen guys run 40-yard dashes. I've seen guys run on a track before. It's not shocking to me. So that's not the cool part. The cool part of the combine that I love watching is the individual drills. I would tell guys, and there are some positions that you should do all the drills. One of them is offensive line. One of them is wide receiver. Cornerbacks should be doing all the drills. Defensive linemen should be doing all the drills. Those kind of guys. The only guys I would say, do the drills, do this, do that, is the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks can be exposed badly in some of these drills. And that's where that's the only position I would caution people is if you feel that you're not going to be up for it or you don't want to do that, then don't do then don't perform at the combine. And for quarterbacks, there's really only one thing that I look at. There's one drill that I look at extensively for quarterbacks, and that is the far out pass. And it is one of the drills that I look at. It's when you have to make that throw from the opposite hash to the opposite sideline. Can you make that throw, and can you make it accurately? And not only accurately, but can you not throw? Ask Dak Prescott. Don't throw that pass behind, because if you throw it behind the receiver, it's going to be 6 for the other team. If you're going to miss high. That's what you have to do. So we got Rod in the chat. So on the YouTube side. So let's bring Rod into the program. And let's see. Rod, how you doing, man?
It's good, man. I'm good, man. I'm just listening to you, man. I just thought about giving you my few 2 cents real quick, man, before I go hit the bed, man.
Absolutely.
I gotta get this off my chest, Deets.
That's what we're here for.
Let's not think that had better groceries than Tom Brady. Joe Montana had better groceries than Tom Brady. Can we say that?
Oh, as I told you in the chat, I can refute that. I can refute that.
So who's better than
the one thing you can say is Joe Montana had better offensive weapons.
Defense too. You don't think defense had a good defense?
The Patriots defense has. You look at those great dominant Patriot teams. 6 or 7 Hall of Famers on the defensive side alone.
Harrison is a problem. I don't think that's the first ballot Hall of Famer.
I don't think he's first ballot. But if Rondé Barber is a Hall of Famer, then Rodney Harrison's a Hall of Famer. Come on.
It don't go like that. It doesn't go like that. So we can't do the what if games for Hall of Famers.
No, but I mean, Rodney Harrison's not on the ballot yet. There are guys that are not on the ballot yet. I mean, you talk about the thing about Joe is Joe played in an era where all of the guys are already all the guys who are Hall of Famers are already Hall of Famers. I mean, Vince Wilfork's not on the ballot yet, but Vince Wilfork's a Hall of Famer. Richard Seymour's a Hall of Famer. Willie McGinnis is a Hall of Famer. Teddy Bruschi's a Hall of Famer.
No.
Rodney Harrison, Ty Law. You want me to keep going? I mean,
Teddy Bruschi is okay. He's not a Junior Seau. They're not on the same category. They're not even the same. They're not even the same wing.
Junior Seau was also a Patriot.
Yeah, I'm saying, but Teddy Bruschi is not even in the same Hall of Fame with that guy. And I'll just say this. I believe they had more in their dominance. You look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's probably the only quarterback you ever see compete against Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game and win it and beat him in the Super Bowl. Who done that? Outdueled him.
Nobody's outdueled. Tom Brady's the only one that's outdueled Patrick Mahomes. He's 2-1 in the Super Bowl.
You know what I mean? So you would never see that kind of stats, even when the quarterback play got better. You can say the quarterback play got better from the 80s to the early 2000s and the late 2000s. Would you say that?
Yeah. Look, you're not going to argue. I mean, you don't have to argue with me. I've already stated I've got Tom Brady as the greatest of all time. But I have my criteria that I use for that. So
and all I'm saying is Bradshaw and Joe Montana was the passenger. They had good groceries. You can't say the Patriots defense up there with a steel curtain. We cannot say that.
But that's irrelevant. That's basically, and what my problem with the argument is. Look, it's okay to say Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. And it's okay to say Joe Montana was great as well, because anybody who watched Joe Montana play football knows Joe Montana was the greatest at his time and is deserving of the second spot on the list. There's nothing that you could say to me that will say, oh, Joe Montana is, when people say, oh, Joe, Brady's better than Joe, and that means Joe is trash. No, it means Joe had attributes. There are attributes that you could put to Joe Montana that I could argue. I could argue that Joe Montana is the greatest of all time. I could argue Otto Graham is the greatest of all time. I could argue any of the top 5 are the greatest of all time. I could make the arguments. The only thing is, when I break down my criteria and I put down, well, this is what separates between them, which to me, what separates Brady from Joe is Joe was 4-0. Anybody who argues with and gets an argument with would tell you Joe was 4-0 in his Super Bowls. All 4 of the 49ers were maybe not heavy, but they were favorites in every Super Bowl. Tom Brady was able to take teams that were not favorites, and you could talk about 2001 against the Rams. You can talk about Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. That they had no business winning that game, but Tom Brady found a way to do it. You can talk. That's what I bring up all the time. But can I say this? Tom over the top is he was able to take teams that were not supposed to win. I mean, Seattle was an even. It was supposed to be an even game, and I mean it came down to 2 yards. It came down to 2 yards. So Vegas was kind of right about that. But still, the Patriots were not a favorite. They still went on to win that game. So that's what I put out.
I agree with you 100%, but you got to look at the pure dominance that we had on the AFC. Peyton Manning only went to two Super Bowls around Tom Brady time. He had to get one. No, he went to 3. My fault. He went to what? He lost to the Saints.
He went to 4.
He went to 4?
Yeah. He won 2. He won 2 and he lost 2.
What? Oh, I'm trying to remember what 2 he lost.
He beat the Bears and he won against Carolina. And he lost to Seattle and New Orleans.
You're right.
The Hank Basket can't catch an onside kick.
You're right. So you look at that pure dominance we had in that decade of us dominating, stopping people like Peyton, making Payne scared. You look at all that stuff we had. Brock, what you call him when he went to 2? Ben Roethlisberger. the Ravens, all the great teams we had in the AFC. Tom Brady was dominant. Our team was dominating them in a fashionable way. I remember when we blew out countless teams and hold them to goose eggs. People forget them times Tom Brady and that offense was skunking people.
Yeah. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. And that's. But here's where I draw the line, and I draw the line on both sides. You know, when somebody says Montana's the greatest and Brady is trash, like, no, both can be true. Both can be true that both guys were great, and I believe one guy is greater than the other. That in any debate that can be made, and like I told you, like when we do this, and when we do these debate things, and we have Michael versus LeBron, like, yes, Michael was great, LeBron is great. If you want to elevate one over the other, you can't knock down the other side. By saying I like Michael, I like MJ, and that makes LeBron trash. No, that hurts your side. That hurts your argument. Like, why are you? If you believe one guy's trash, then there's no argument. There's no argument there. If you believe Tom Brady is better than Joe Montana, and you say, oh, because Joe Montana was just trash and just had guys around him, that deflates your argument. You're arguing against as one guy is great and one guy is not. When you can argue both are great, here's why my guy's greater, and then you go into that. That's the way to say, look, that's the way to the other side can't come back at you. The other side can only come back with, all right, you like that characteristic. I look at this characteristic more, and that's the way we have debates. But if you call somebody trash, it ruins your whole argument. It's like superhero.
I called him a passenger, which I think he is. He was a passenger. He had a great grocery. He was a passenger. What you call it? I could put Warren Moon in that system right now in the 80s. I bet Warren Moon wins at least 2 Super Bowls. You don't think Warren Moon is a quarterback where he could have got at least 2 Super Bowls with that offense and that offensive line?
With that team, I mean, that 49ers team was a match made in heaven. You had Joe, and you had the offensive whisperer of Bill Walsh. You put any quarterback with Bill Walsh, they're going to die. You put Elway with Bill Walsh. You have a dominant team. Bill Walsh, and that's the greatness of Bill Walsh. And you could play that game with anybody. I mean, you could play that game with Tom Brady. You take Peyton Manning and put him with Bill Belichick. You don't think Peyton Manning and Tom Brady flip flop as far as Brady winning all the time against the Colts. You can play that. That game. All we have is what's out there. All we can go by is what we saw.
I get paid. Peyton had a great arm. He had a great stronger arm than Tom Brady. I give you that. He can throw it deeper, but Tom, leadership and accuracy, he's one of the best to ever do it. And I'm not scared to say that. It might be my homerness, but I think he had a great accurate arm. I think Aikman had a great accurate arm. But to call a person because they lost a couple times in the Super Bowl not great or on the same pedestal is crazy to me. I think Elway's still in my top 10, top 5 range. He only won 2 Super Bowls and had crazy losses.
Absolutely. Anybody who doesn't have Elway in their top 5 is you're discounted already. You're discounted already, or you just didn't watch Elway play football. because
And
John Elway is one of John Elway is. I have it's an argument between it's an argument between fourth and fifth. I could argue it either way. I could care less. You could put Peyton 4, Elway 5, or Elway 4, Peyton 5. Either way you look at it, those guys are interchangeable to me as far as top 5 quarterbacks of all time is concerned. I mean, nobody's getting into the top 3. Nobody's gonna challenge the top 3 when you've got Tom, Joe, and Otto Graham. You wanna get into your football annals. Go look up Otto Graham's numbers, Otto Graham's stats, Otto Graham's play at the time. At the time he was playing, nobody played quarterback like Otto Graham did.
So to say that, and Dan Marino, like Dan Marino never had an inch of a defense. Me and you could play defense for him.
He never had a lot of things. He never had a defense. He never had a running game. It was Dan Marino or bust. I mean, he had great wide receivers with the Marks, with Mark Ingram and Mark Duper. He had great tight ends with Keith Jackson. He always had talent in the passing game. They never had a running game to go with it. Never had a defense, even though they had one of my favorite defensive players of all time, Brian Cox. They still never had a dominant defense. And it showed. And I mean, you talk about that. They ran into possibly the greatest team of all time to never win. The greatest team of all time that never won, the dynasty that was the Buffalo Bills. And if you don't think they're a dynasty, what other team has gone to 4 straight Super Bowls?
They don't give them credit because they lost.
No,
like that's crazy.
Welcome to the world. So many people have said. I mean, how many rap artists have ever said nobody remembers the losers. Nobody remembers you if you lose.
Could you imagine this though, man? If you could put that defense, this Buffalo defense with Jim Kelly and Reed, you know what I mean? They probably could won a 3-peat. They could have a 3-peat if he had a defense like this Buffalo team now.
And it's funny to think of, like, if we can talk about future. We can talk about things all the time. Like, if Scott Norwood's kick doesn't go wide right and they win that Super Bowl,
the Giants,
that was the closest one. There was that one, and then there was the first one against Dallas. The first one against Dallas. Those were the closest the Bills were in a Super Bowl. They got blown out by Washington, and they got blown out by the Cowboys the second time. But if they win one, we look at that we look at that Buffalo 4-peat. We look at that so differently if they had won one, and we would look at Bill Parcells differently had they not had Scott Norwood not missed wide right. That one kick cemented two franchises for forever. Forever, we're going to look back on that.
Where do you have Bruce Smith rank?
Bruce Smith, as far as what? As far as defensive end? Yeah. I'd have to really look into it. Probably fifth or sixth on as far as the defensive end's concerned.
That's not bad.
You got to start with you. It's hard because there's two guys on that I count. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Straight up defensive ends, he's probably third or fourth. He's probably third or fourth. But if you're talking defensive ends as far as pass rushers, well, pass rushing starts and ends with Lawrence Taylor.
Who's your greatest defensive tackle of all time?
Defensive tackle?
Yeah.
Greatest defensive tackle of all time is playing right now. It's Aaron Donald. It's Aaron Donald, and it's not even close.
So you got him over. So Sap is nowhere.
Yeah,
you still got. You don't think Sap?
Sap.
I got Sap.
I got Sap as number 2. I got Sap as number 2 on my list. But Warren Sapp was never even close to a season NFL MVP. Aaron Donald was MVP of the regular season. I mean MVP. Yeah. He had an MVP season from the defensive tackle position. That is unheard of. And it's unheard of how talented that guy is. He is and was. Aaron Donald right now is the best. He's still got more in the tank, more to add to his list. But if he ended right now, Aaron Donald's the greatest defensive tackle of all time. But
what about where do you see this? Before I get off, man, where do you see Jalen Ramsey going to? Because I've been hearing reports they're trying to trade him or release him.
If again, it depends on what. It depends on what the element is. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him. That contract is absolutely insane.
Would you like to see him in Dallas, though? Would you like to see him in Dallas?
I would love to see. I would love to see him in Dallas. I would love to see Jalen Ramsey in Dallas. The thing about the Dallas Cowboys is I would not. If you can sign him, I wouldn't trade for. I would not trade for him. Because that contract is I don't know how many teams have the cap room to take on that contract.
You're right.
So if the Rams are looking to get rid of him, the reason they're trying to get rid of him is because of that contract. So if the Rams are gonna release him, from that contract, you can probably swoop in and get him at a cheaper price. If you can get him at a cheap price, absolutely, Jalen Ramsey. But if I'm the Cowboys, I have so many more issues to fill with the Dallas Cowboys than at corner because the Cowboys have two corners already. Jalen Ramsey would be bringing it. If you're able to bring him in, awesome. But if not, if you're looking to bring in a veteran guy, bring in somebody who can play safety. That's what I would tell the Dallas Cowboys. But as far as teams that would need the Raiders, if you're the Raiders, you have to face Pat Mahomes. How many times you have to face them twice a year? Why wouldn't you bring in a Jalen Ramsey type guy? If you're I'm just trying to spitball it. If you're the Miami Dolphins, why wouldn't you bring in a Jalen Ramsey? Because
Xavier Howard. God damn, Xavier Howard. What's the other corner they got on there?
Because because you have to face Josh Allen. So if you have one and Miami already have they have an okay defense. They have an okay. They played great at times last year, and then there are games like the Baltimore Ravens game where they just got shredded. That secondary got shredded.
That shit would be scary. Him on the Jets too. That should be scary.
That's another team. That brings up another team that. But I mean, do they have the cap? The Baltimore. He would fit with the Baltimore Ravens as well.
God damn.
I mean. You, again, go back and look at that Miami game where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle just went absolutely insane, and the Ravens couldn't cover either one of those guys. Both of them were running wide open on almost every play, and they got shredded. That's why they lost a 15-point lead in the second half. But so if Jalen Ramsey hits the market where you can get him at a reasonable price, there's not a team in the league that wouldn't benefit from having Jalen Ramsey on their team. Now, having Jalen Ramsey on the field and having Jalen Ramsey in the locker room are two totally different things. You need to have a strong locker room and you need to have somebody in there that when Jalen Ramsey starts doing Jalen Ramsey things that can go into it and tell him, hey, you need to calm down. Like, you need to keep yourself in check here. Just play it, because that's what happens with guys like Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey was great with the Rams when he first got traded there because he got traded and had to keep his mouth shut. Then they win the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden Jalen Ramsey starts chirping, and now the Rams are looking to get rid of him. That's Jalen Ramsey in a nutshell. Is Jalen Ramsey, he can be humbled, but you have to have guys in the locker room that are able to say, Jalen, you're going over the top here. You need to calm down. And you need to keep him on task, because that's what Jalen Ramsey does.
I appreciate you having me on, Deets. I'll get up with you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, Rod. Thanks. And I'm looking forward to another lunch crew coming up. Right. So just let me know.
All right, man.
All right. So that was our discussion with Rod from the Rod Uncensored, and for all of you that are listening to this and on the replay, go check out Rod Uncensored. Of course, we got a lot of Rod and the Lunch Crew with yours truly. Love going on that program. Love talking with Rod. We did a great debate on Monday with Rod's thoughts on the MJ versus LeBron, and we talked about finals opponents, and you can get my thoughts there. You can get Rod's thoughts there. But just to tie a bow on the conversation I was having with Rod is, look, the reason we do the Summer of Greatness on this program is to talk about all the different things about how a guy gets to be great, how a guy gets to be called, as everybody likes to say, the GOAT, okay? To say someone's the greatest doesn't mean the other people are not as good. It doesn't mean that it doesn't knock down somebody else's point of view. If and if you're in a debate with someone, if you want to make your side look better, your side doesn't look better by knocking down the other side. You look better by having a formidable opponent, okay? And you take boxing. Take boxing, for example, okay? Muhammad Ali is considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest boxer of all time, because he had the Rumble in the Jungle. He had fights with George Foreman. He had fights with the greatest with the greatest opponents, where they were on equal level, where you had one guy win, another guy win, and they come back and they keep going. That's what makes guys great. That's having a formidable opponent makes you greater by saying, hey, look, and whenever I'm in one of these debates, whether it's Joe versus Tom, you've heard my thoughts on this. Tom Brady gets the nod to me because of the criteria that I put on it, where I don't hold the losses to Tom. I don't hold the losses from Tom Brady as accountable as I do the fact that he's won games that he should have lost, that on paper they were supposed to lose, but somehow Tom Brady found a way to win those games. That to me is more important than Joe Montana had 4. Yeah, he had 4 wins and he didn't lose. Well, he never played a team that was comparable to the 49ers. He never played in that situation. He was never put in a situation where the 49ers were the worst team going in. He was never in that situation. So that's why I, not to say discount, but I say, all right, well, Joe's got 4, Tom's got 6. So we have to find a way to make to make to go against those. Now, if somebody were on the other side, if I were on, in a debate with Rod and we were going back and forth and saying, all right, Rod was saying, all right, Tom Brady is the best. I want somebody to argue Joe Montana. When I argue Joe Montana, I would say, well, Joe Montana not only was 4-0 in the Super Bowl, but also has a goose egg for interception. He never turned the ball over in a Super Bowl. That's an amazing statistic for a quarterback to be. So, and Rod with the Denver Nuggets versus Celtics for the finals in the comment. Rod, go back and look at the NBA preview and go back and look at what I said to Snowman on Snowman's show for the NBA Finals. Because I said Nuggets Heat, and the Heat have absolutely let me down on that end. But I was touting the Denver Nuggets from the start of the season, so I totally agree, and I would love to see Nuggets Celtics. I would love. I want to see the Nuggets in the finals because I want to see Joker. And if that happens, we'd be talking about Joker, a 3-time NBA MVP. How nuts are we talking about the Joker? Right? If they get to a finals, the Joker will finally get the accolades he deserves. And of course, you know me, Boston Celtics. I'm a Celtics fan, so I'd love to see that. Celtics back-to-back finals appearances. No problems with that for me. I would love to see the Celtics in the finals. I'd love to see the Nuggets. The one thing about the Celtics, though, Jason Tatum can't be getting ejected from games. Like Jason Tatum, you can't do that. We saw that against the Knicks the other night. Tatum gets ejected, Celtics lose. So that's really the only thing. The Celtics need to start getting into a mode right now of get ready for the playoffs. You can't be pushing guys like Jason Tatum 35, 36 minutes. You got to start peeling that back, guys. You got to peel that back to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum playing 25 to 30 minutes per game, and kind of taper that off, give them a chance to kind of breathe, rest themselves a little bit. And I'm not saying go Kawhi and go load management. I'm not saying take whole games off, but I'm saying use your rotation right now. Use the advantage of where you are in the standings to don't get caught up in, we have to win. We have to win at all costs right now because you have bigger things afoot. You have bigger things afoot for the Celtics. So that's my caution to the Celtics. But just to wrap this up, we talk about superheroes here all the time. We talk about that all the time. What makes a great hero great? Having a great villain. Having someone great on the other side. What makes Superman so good? Lex Luthor. What makes Batman so good? The Joker. What makes the Avengers so great? Thanos, Galactus. Having a great villain on the other side. That's the way you have to approach these kinds of debates. Is you have to look at it and say, well, all right. You have to look at it and say the other side has a great point, but here's why my guy is great. Here, your guy's great. Here's why my guy's greater, and that's where debate right now falls apart, and it's falling apart because of people like Skip Bayless, people like Stephen A. Smith, people like Around the Horn and all of these things, PTI, where it's one or the other. It's one or the other. One guy's great and one guy's not. Like, no, they both can be. We have said it on this program. It's why we do the Summer of Greatness. It's why we do the Summer of Greatness tournament the way that we do it, is because both guys can be great and both guys have characteristics that make them great. Both guys can be on a level. It's which criteria do you put above the rest? And that's where we can have a debate of, and it's like I did with Rod the other day of, hey, who played tougher teams in the finals? All right, well, let's just make a list. Let's just list out all the teams that we've played against, and we go from there. What? Let me see what nonsense these guys are talking about. What? All right. That's just getting out of control. That's just out of control. I'm not even gonna interest that conversation. I'm not even gonna interest that conversation. It doesn't matter. All right. Anyway, so that was that. So anyway, thanks to Rod for checking in, and definitely check out the Rod Uncensored podcast. It's got a lot. Rod is doing. I mean, there's like 9 different shows that Rod's doing on his podcast. So definitely check him out. Do all that. Do all of that stuff. And when I figure out how to use YouTube the right way, we'll start linking stuff to our shows. We'll start putting links to Snowman, links to Rod, links to Playmaker, links to all these guys, all the guys that check our show out that we love to have on the program. We love to get them out there. Cool McCain and the Eagles Elite podcast. We'll when I get a chance to actually sit down and do this, we'll actually do it. But to finish up the first hour of the show here, finish up the combine discussion. Things I love. The thing I love about the combine, I love the individual workouts. One thing I'm glad to see, and by the way, yes, Jake Paul losing to Tommy Fury. I actually, while I was playing poker on Sunday, Nick, who's one of the guys I play with, he had the fight on, and we were watching it. We were watching it while we were playing poker. So, the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, hey, they're doing their thing in the fighting game, whether it's in Ultimate Fighting or whether it's Logan Paul at the WWE level. You can't fault the Pauls right now for what they're doing, and I would actually like to see that fight again. I'd like to see that fight again. I'd love. That's the best, and that's a great thing for the fighting game. For the fighting game, you need rivalries like this. You need, in my day, it was Bo Holyfield. Bo Holyfield 1, Bo Holyfield 2, Bo Holyfield 3, Bo Holyfield 4. Like, you could have kept going with it. I would have loved to see it. A lot of people when it got up to 4, they were like, all right, we're done. Like, we want to see more. I would have seen 5. I would have seen 5, 6. Like, I would have been all in for that. Like, go. Like, let's see that happen. You want to see those kind of fights. The closest thing I can think of is Wilder Fury. From a couple of years back, where we had Wilder Fury 1 was awesome. Wilder Fury 2 was great. I would love to see a Wilder Fury 3, but I think we're too far. I think we're too far removed from that to be able to get where it would be something that we would like, that where we would get something that we're normal to see, but I mean, you want what the fighting game needs. And look, I'm not a UCF guy. I'm not a fighter guy. I love boxing. I love boxing matches. I like watching boxing more than I like watching fighting. But I'm all what boxing needs is boxing needs more guys that are just willing to fight and willing to fight a bunch of times. Like I said, what makes Muhammad Ali the greatest of all time? It's the fact that he fought Foreman, the fact that he fought other greats at his time. Muhammad Ali was not afraid to fight. He was not afraid to fight anybody, and he would fight them not once, not twice, but thrice. He had no problem. That's what made Muhammad Ali great. And so I'm all for that. Like I said, I'm much more of a boxing guy than I am a UFC guy. I think the skill of boxing is just I think as they call it, the sweet science. It just grabs me more. And that doesn't mean every boxing match is fantastic and great. Like there are times you watch it and you're like, all right, guys, this is getting kind of crazy. Like let's, defense. You guys are too defensive. This is boring. That does happen. But when you get a good fight, when you get a really good fight, and you see guys going 10 rounds, and it's punch after punch, it's connecting, it's got guys making move. I would much rather watch a top level. I'd much rather watch a top level boxing match than I would a top level UFC. That's just that's just me. That's just it's maybe it's because I grew up more with boxing, but yeah, I'd much rather see that. But anyway, back to the combine, because we got to finish up the combine so that we can spend the second hour just dissecting Disney. But anyway, the combine. What I would like to see at the combine is I would like to see guys. I would like to see guys running through, offensive line. I like to see the lateral drill where, guys have to shadow a defensive lineman as he's running side to side. They got to shuffle. What you see out of that is you see guys, can they get a good squat in? Can they move laterally? Can they move their feet? Do they move without getting crossed up? Because that's what guys are doing in the passing game. You have to be able to move laterally and shadow your opponent. So I like watching. That's what I look for in linemen. I look for that drill. In wide receivers, they actually don't run the drill that I like them. The best drill that they do is the where they run straight across the field and they have to catch the ball at all different angles. That's kind of cool. That shows wide receivers' hands. I like that drill. That drill's okay to me. My favorite drill is one that I used to run with my players, and I call it the gauntlet. And what it is you take every route that you want to run. So like the first one, first you do a comeback. So we would do a comeback. You run the comeback, catch the ball, get it, run to the next cone. Next cone, you run a slant. And you run a slant, catch the ball, run to the next cone. Next one, you run like a whip out, catch the ball, run to the next cone. You do a dig. So you have all the routes, and you're just running them constantly, getting the ball thrown to you at different levels. So that's kind of the That's kind of what that's a drill that I would love to see at the combine, because to me that's what makes a wide receiver. At the NFL, I really don't care if you're a speedster or speed guy. I care about two things: can you catch the ball, and can you run routes? Can you run multiple routes? You know, and that's not to say, oh, well, I mean, Randy Moss. Randy Moss ran two routes his entire career: slant and go. A slant and a go. And he dominated the slant and the go. Or if he caught the slant and you didn't stop him, he was going to take it to the house. If he ran the go, it was a jump ball, and nobody was better at catching jump balls than Randy Moss. So he's a guy that turned two routes into amazing. Now, when you talk other guys, but whenever we have this debate of greatest wide receivers of all time, the reason I put Jerry Rice at the top of that list is Jerry Rice. There wasn't a route Jerry Rice couldn't run that was better than everybody else. Whether it was a comeback, whether it was a slant, whether it was an out, whether it was a dig, whether any one of those routes, Jerry Rice ran it to perfection. And that's what I look for in a wide receiver is, can you get in and out of your break good enough to run the route, and can you catch the ball in that route? So that's the drill. I would like to see that drill implemented into the combine to really give us a good look of, this guy runs routes, he can catch the ball. That's what I would look for in that. Again, quarterbacks, what I look for at the combine, I look for that deep out. Can you catch that deep out? Can you throw that deep out, and can you throw it accurately to where your guy catches it or it goes into the sideline? Because if you throw that ball behind the receiver, it's going the other way. And no one knows that better than Dak Prescott. No one knows that better than Dallas Cowboys fans. We saw it way too much this year. That deep out, can you throw it, and can you throw it accurately? That's telling to me about quarterbacks. For defensive linemen, like I said, the one where they go against the linemen, I like to see that drill where they go one way, where they shuffle one way, run back the other, and then come and loop around. That's a great drill. Shows you what a guy can do. Can he get off a block? Can he use his hands? That's what I look for there. Linebackers, I love the box drill. And some will call it a box drill. Some will call it a W drill. I do box drills with my linebackers where, you backpedal, you shuffle, and come forward. That's the kind of drill I like to see from my linebackers, because you need linebackers that are going to take their read steps, and need guys that fill, that can come up and fill a hole. I need to see that you can do that. But you also need, in today's game, you have to be able to cover the middle of the field. You have to be able to drop back, but you have to be able to sprint out of your drop back, which is what I like to see out of my linebackers. Corners, I love to see. I love the one-on-one trail drill, where a guy starts because where a guy starts ahead of you, and you have to catch up to him. That to me tells me a lot about how a guy can cover, because in the NFL, you're never going to be even with a guy. The biggest plays you're going to have, you have to make up ground, because you don't know where the guy's going. So can you make a play? Can you make a play when a guy beats you? That's what I look for out of that. And then safeties is the W drill, where you backpedal, come forward, backpedal, come forward, backpedal, come forward. That to me is the best drill for a safety, because safeties have to come, they have to fill, but they also need to be able to get back. So you get to see all of that. And those are the drills I look for. Drills are most important. So to finish up the combine, so the funny thing is, all they really show and talk about is the 40-yard dash. When to me, here's how the combine is. One, biggest thing, most important thing about showing up at the combine, and most important thing is health. Meet with the health guys, get your physical, and get a clean bill of health. That's step one. That should be most important. That should be most important on everybody's list. Okay, whether you perform at the combine or not, you go to get checked out by the doctors and get a clean bill of health. That's step one. Step two is a face-to-face meeting with the GMs and the scouts, and we don't get to see any of that. But I mean, there have been great stories of that where guys have just been, guys go in and they're actually writing plays on the board, and they're doing things that they're going above and beyond what the GMs and coaches are asking of them. That's cool. We've also seen nightmare stories, and the most talked about one is Des Bryant, where the Miami Dolphins decided to ask him about his mom being a prostitute, which is completely out of bounds. Completely should not. No person, no player, no college kid, and we're not talking about when Des Bryant was an all-pro wide receiver. This was Des Bryant at the combine. He was still a college kid at the time. No college kid should have to be asked that question. If you want to ask him that in a free agent situation, when he's a grown man, yeah, okay. But you don't ask that's out of bounds. That stuff's out of bounds. But but again, the meetings and how you handle those meetings, that's second thing that's most important. Third thing that's most important is the on the field drills, as I just explained, the drills that I showed. Those are the third thing. Fourth thing is all the little things. I'm trying to remember what they call it. They do the box drill. Your box time, that's important. The high jump, the long jump, those to me show athleticism more than. Well, now it varies based on position. Like if you're an offensive tackle, obviously the bench press is the most telling of anything. But if you're a wide receiver, I want to see that you could jump high, that you could jump far. That tells me you have athleticism. Now, you add that into the last thing on the list is the 40-yard dash. I could care less about the 40-yard dash for most players. Like I said, for wide receivers and defensive backs, yeah, the 40-yard dash is important. But for most positions, a 40-yard dash is meaningless. So that's something that that's what I look at for the combine. All right. Enough of the NFL stuff as we look at it. Next week on the program, we'll break down some of the NFL draft stuff. We'll break down how our prospects did, what we saw at the combine, and where that gets us to fit in. Now let's get to Marvel. Oh my goodness, what a weekend. What a disastrous weekend for Marvel at the box office. As we've told you on this program, we did our Quantum Mania breakdown. We've talked about it on numerous shows. I talked about it on Snowman's show. You gotta be kidding me. A 71% drop from week 1 to week 2. And we're now in week 3 of this movie, and it's just a disaster. a disaster for the MCU. And, the funny thing is, Marvel comes out and they say, "Oh, we stand by all the decisions we made." And oh my God, read the room, guys. Everybody is seeing through what you're putting out there. They've seen what you're putting out there already. Okay, they've seen. The fans are seeing through it. People talk about superhero fatigue. Oh, and there's a Pizzle in the chat. A Pizzle, what up? What we're talking about with Marvel as I break out my axe. Look, people say there's superhero fatigue. They say that there's that's not the case. People want a good story. If the story sucks and people have, I will go see a movie and people say, "Oh, it's because it gets review bombed and because reviewers spoil it." There's no. Let me say this: the only way a story gets spoiled is if it's terrible, is if the story is bad. If you write a good story and people say, and people review it and they reveal all of the parts of the story, if the story is good, people will still go see it. I will go see movies that I've watched reviews on. If I watch the review, and whether the reviewer is positive or negative, I could care less about what their feelings are. I just want to get a sense of the story. I want to get a sense of should I invest my time and effort in this? And if I watch a review, and even if the reviewer is ripping it apart, but I'm like, that sounds like a good story, I'm going to check that out. I'm going to go check it out. Even if I know what's going to happen and I know the story, I want to see it play out because it sounds like a good story to me. So all of these people that say, "Oh, it's the bad reviews. The bad reviews are keeping people away." No, they're not. People are hearing the reviewer talk about the story and they go, "Yeah, this story makes no sense. This story is terrible. This story sucks. I don't want to see it because I don't like the way that this is being played out." That's what's happening to Marvel. They're hiring people who are not writing good stories. Write a good story and we will watch it. Write a good story that doesn't preach to people, that just tells us a story that we can make up our own mind. That's what we want. We want a story that we can get, that we can infer. We as the watcher, we don't need to know what your politics, your policies are. We don't need to know that. I don't need to know that through your movie. I can infer it by watching your movie. That's the way it's supposed to be. It doesn't have to suit my political movements either. It could go completely against what I'm saying. As long as I can get behind the story and it fits, I'm okay with that. But you don't have to shove it down my throat. That's just how things work. So that's what I'm talking about. That's why Disney is failing. That's why the MCU is at complete failure. And I said this on Snowman this morning. I'll say it on this program. I've watched lots of people that have said, that have done reviews, and one of the guys that I watched, Gary from Nerdrotic, I agree / disagree, because the first thing I said when I walked out of Ant-Man and the Wasp, when I walked out of the movie theater, I said to myself, "Wow, Marvel's dead." I said, "Marvel's dead." That was my very first thing. So what's the first thing that Gary says in his review? Marvel's not dying, they're dead. And while I tend to agree with Gary, I will say Marvel is on its last rights. Read them their last rights, because Guardians 3 is coming up. Guardians 3 is going to be worth the watch because it's James Gunn's farewell to Marvel. James Gunn saying farewell to the characters. I imagine James Gunn is not going to play, James Gunn is not going to play the Marvel game as far as, all right, I'm going to destroy my characters to further an agenda. I think James Gunn went back and did this movie to the characters that he built, the people that he worked with, to send Dave Bautista off because he said he doesn't want to play Drax anymore. So I think Drax is going to get a good send off. I'm worried because I think Rocket is going to. I think this movie is going to be a send off to Rocket. So I think that's the case. Another interesting thing. I'll get into that in a second while I get into this. But that's to finish up this point about Guardians 3. Guardians 3 is the last hurrah, because after that they've already pushed the Marvels back to November. They've already pushed the Marvels. They've already canceled. They have suspended indefinitely Ironheart and Echo from Disney Plus. They have already suspended them indefinitely, which means they're never coming out. They're never gonna. We may never see those. Which makes you ask the question: why does the character exist in Wakanda forever? Yeah. Exactly. Why? Why does that character exist if you're just going to suspend indefinitely the program that she was going to be in? It's because the character was terrible. The comic book run was terrible. So everything about it just screams, all right, this is not worth anybody's time. So that's where we're going from there. But like I was saying, I was watching The Critical Drinker before. I was watching the Open Bar, and they were talking about, there's no stakes anymore. There's no stakes in Marvel anymore because of the, because all of a sudden we have all these multiverse characters, and they were talking about, oh, well, this character, Wanda's dead. We know Wanda's going to come back in some form. Is it going to be the same form? Is it going to be a multiverse form? Whatever. But they already did that. They already retconned everything. They already retconned it. And Guardians 3 falls into that where I'm watching the trailer and I'm watching Chris Pratt's character. I'm watching him interact. I'm watching Star-Lord interact with Gamora. And he's saying all these things like, oh, you're not the person. I think one of the lines, I'm trying to remember it from the trailer. One of the lines was, you're not the Gamora. You're not the Gamora I knew. No shit, Sherlock. She's a Gamora from before she even met you, and the real Gamora is laying at the bottom of the Vormir. We all know that, but yet she's going to play a prominent role in this. Like, what are the stakes anymore? Go back to Infinity War, where Doctor Strange said, I saw 14,700,001. I saw this many battles, and so we're sitting. You're sitting there going, all right. Well, how many infinite Earths? How many timelines are there? Well, Doctor Strange just told you. There's 14 million. There's probably 140 million more from that. So, it's why multiverse stuff gets taken out of control. And it's why people can't connect with what's going on because they don't follow the multiverses. They don't care. It's why when DC did this, when DC did it in the comics, I'm talking DC Comics, right? When DC Comics did this, they opened up the multiverse and they realized this is getting out of control. We can't handle this. Our audience doesn't know what's going on. So we have to have Crisis on Infinite Earths to bring everything back to a centralized location. Now, DC has done this time and time again. They did it with Crisis. They did it with the New 52. They did it with, the Reborns. They did it with all of these things. All of these things have been done like that where, but that's the reason that they do this is because they realize the audience just has checked out. The audience doesn't care about the universe we're in now because there's so many more universes out there. We don't know what, nothing is permanent anymore. Nothing is, all right, this is over. This is over and done with. People are talking about, oh, they could bring a Tony Stark back from an era where, from a multiverse where Tony Stark still exists. Well, I would say no. I would say that would be the worst thing Marvel could do. It would satisfy people who just want to see Tony Stark. But you're bringing a Tony Stark in who didn't sacrifice. The whole thing about Endgame is that Tony Stark, his character arc came complete. He went from a guy who Captain America said in Avengers 2012 said, you're not the guy who makes the sacrifice play. Well, in Endgame, he made the sacrifice play by making the snap, by snapping everybody back into existence. He made the sacrifice. He made the sacrifice play of ending the war by ending Thanos. Okay? And Bruce Banner is the one that snapped everybody back into existence, which, by the way, Hulk gets absolutely no credit for. It seems like everybody just doesn't care. They're like, oh, yeah, Hulk, who cares? But the Hulk, everybody seems to just say, oh, Tony Stark is the one who saved everybody. No, Hulk saved everybody. Hulk is the one that snapped everybody back so that they could come back for the fight, which seems to be just forgotten. But people like me will never forget, and we will give all the credit to Bruce Banner for that. But Tony is the one that ended the war by snapping and sacrificing his own life. So his character completed the arc. If you bring a Tony from a different multiverse where that didn't happen, well, Tony doesn't have, it's not the same Tony Stark. It's not the Tony Stark that has gone through all of the things that Tony Stark has gone through. It's the same way, the same thing with Loki. The Loki that we're seeing in the Loki show, which is going to have a season 2 at some point, whenever Marvel decides they want to do Disney Plus again. We have to remember, that's not the Loki that died. That's not the Loki that Thanos killed. That's the Loki from Avengers 2012. He doesn't have he hasn't learned the empathy of what happened at the end. He hasn't gone through the trials that they went through in Thor 2, Thor Dark World, which, a lot of Marvel fans want to forget Dark World, but the key point of Dark World is that Loki, is what Loki goes through as far as being a prisoner at first and then going out and being one of the heroes and doing all that. Loki really it's why I respect Thor 2 or Thor Dark World. We haven't gotten the Loki from Ragnarok. The Loki that makes that leads the final battle and does all of that stuff. That Loki doesn't exist anymore. That's not the Loki that we're seeing on screen. It's a different Loki. The same way in Guardians 3, it's a different Gamora. It's not a Gamora that's, spent time with Peter Quill, that went with Peter Quill to battle his father in Guardians 2. And, she's seen all the things that Peter Quill can do. She doesn't see that. This Gamora has not seen that side of Peter Quill. So she doesn't see Peter Quill the way we see him. She sees him as just some guy. And Peter Quill sees her as the Gamora that he grew up, that he fought all those things. That's not her. That's not her. It's a totally different character. Might be the same, it might have the same name, but it's a different character. And that's the problem that Marvel has right now is that they can't bring any of these characters in. If they want to retcon some of these characters, we're not getting the character that we remember. And because of that, everybody's checked out. Everybody is just checking out and they're gone. And that's why Marvel is dead. That's why Marvel is dead, and that's why they're getting beat by Cocaine Bear at the box office. Marvel is being beaten by Cocaine Bear. I can't tell you whether Cocaine Bear is a great movie or not. I saw the trailer, and from the trailer, it looks like a fun movie that if you go into it thinking that it's going to be fun, I think you might enjoy it. If you go into Cocaine Bear thinking you're going to get a seriously toned movie, I think you're going into it with the wrong mindset. I would love to see somebody break down Cocaine Bear. Because for me, it's not a movie I'm going to see. I'm not rushing to the theater. Like if somebody called me up and said, "Hey, you want to go see this movie?" I would go, but it's not something I'm going out of my way. It's not like I did for Ant-Man and the Wasp, where I made sure that I was going to go see it. No, Cocaine Bear, I'm not going to go. I'm probably not going to see it in the movie theater. I'm going to wait till it comes out on a streaming service and watch it there. But I'm excited. I'm excited to watch it. I can't wait to see it. I think it looks like a fun movie and it looks exciting. So I might check it out that way. But there's no way that Cocaine Bear should be beating Ant-Man and the Wasp at the box office. That's a disaster for Marvel. And that's a disaster for Disney, which, speaking of disasters for Disney, we have two disasters that we have to talk about. And then we'll get into we'll save our final topic. We'll do our final top. Our final topic we'll move it to a Saturday stream so that we can try to get some people in, see if we can get some people in and talk about the rule. So we'll move the rule changes in baseball. We'll move them to Saturday. We'll do a Saturday stream. It'll be fun. But no. Well, let's end with the two disasters at Disney. And one is a mediocre disaster. I don't know if it's a disaster yet, but Mandalorian season 3 dropped. For those of you that don't know, well, people have said the Mandalorian is Mandalorian is the only thing Star Wars has going. If Mandalorian's the last thing Star Wars has going, then this season opener, this season debut, holy cow. If this is the best you've got, we are in trouble. Lucasfilm, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. There is nothing to this premiere. It is, if you liked Mandalorian season 1 and 2, you'll love Mandalorian season 3 because it's exactly the same thing. It's you've got to do this. You've got to do this. It's Mandalorian. It's the Mandalorian going out and saying, well, I have to go do this task. Well, in order to complete this task, you have to do this, this, and this. Okay, well, in the order of doing this, in order to do this, you have to go do that. That's what the Mandalorian has been. That's basically what they do here. They go from place to place to place. People interrupt, and he goes on side. It's as multiple people have said, time-consuming side quest. Well, what's the overall goal? Oh, we got a side quest to go on. We have a side quest to go on. The one interesting part of Mandalorian season 3, episode 1, the one interesting part is he asks, or I forget how it comes about. Oh no, Apollo Creed is now like the mayor, or like, he basically runs the city that he's in. So Mandalorian goes to see him, and he says, I could really use a marshal around here, which I was expecting them to bring up. I forget the guy. I always call people by things that I see them in, but the dude from Justified, I was expecting him to be like, oh, go get this guy. Go get this guy. He's a marshal. Like when they said marshal, that was immediately what I thought. But no, Mando brings up Gina Carano's character, who we all know Gina Carano was unceremoniously and unapologetically dismissed by Disney because she had different political thoughts than the rabid fan base that wanted her canceled. And Disney caved in, got rid of Gina Carano, and instead of just saying, they made up some ridiculous story. Oh, she got called back by the Republic or whatever, and she's been called up to do some kind of mission, and she's unavailable or whatever. Like, okay, fantastic. But those of us that loved Gina Carano's character, that loved that thought she was one of the bright spots of Mandalorian, well, guess what? She's gone. So, and there's no getting around it because we all know what happened. We all aren't going to forget that Lucasfilm just decided they couldn't work with her. They wanted to embarrass her. They wanted her to go down, bend the knee to Kathleen Kennedy and all of them, bend the knee and go through a humiliation process. And Gina Carano was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not submitting myself to that. That's degrading, and I don't want to do it. So they let her go. We know that, but they tried to tell us some story, and it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. And that's where we are with The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, it was basically Mandalorian going around doing some things, and it was basically shot after shot of, hey, Baby Yoda on the screen. Hey, nothing's going on with Yoda on the screen. Hey, Yoda, buy Baby Yoda stuff. So if you like Baby Yoda, then Mandalorian season 3 looks like it's going to be good for you because it's pretty much Baby Yoda on the screen. Every other shot is it. Ooh, Joe Stevens, let's talk ball. Joe, I'm up for it. What do you want? What do you want to talk about? Let me know what you want to talk about. If you want to join the StreamYard, the StreamYard is up at the top of the chat. You can click on that. We can get you in. Or you can call the show, 646-668-8415, and we can talk about what you want to do. As I said, who's your team? Joe, who's my team for depends on which sport you're talking about here. Football, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. Baseball, I am a New York Mets fan. Basketball, I'm a Celtics fan. And hockey, I'm a Rangers fan. So I tend to get around. NFL, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. And I've explained this on numerous occasions on this program of how I became a Dallas. As I told Cole in my, if y'all haven't checked out his show, Revelations, go check that out. Seahawks fan. All right. What do you want? You want to talk about your Seahawks? I'll talk about your Seahawks. I love that. But as I was saying, go check out Cole Johnson, Revelations. It's awesome. I explained how I'm a Cowboys fan out of spite. All my friends were Giants fans, and so that's how I became a Cowboys fan. They pretty much goaded me into it, and I took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and the Cowboys became my favorite team. Because, as I said, I was rooting for them. Let's talk about Dak. Jerry Jones saying he might draft a quarterback. I think that's I think that's I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback as far as a first rounder. I could see the Cowboys taking a quarterback in the middle of the draft as far as third, fourth, or fifth round. I don't see them drafting using a quality pick. The Cowboys have way too many holes to waste on a quarterback that might never see the field, that you're praying never sees the field. But I mean, we saw it last year. We've seen it the last 2 years with Dak Prescott. Hendon Hooker, I don't think Hendon Hooker will stick around long enough for the Cowboys to get. As far as my draft breakdown of Hendon Hooker, I have him fourth on my quarterback list. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be able to get him there. I don't think Hendon Hooker would fall to the third round. I think Hendon Hooker goes somewhere either late first round or early second round. All depending. The spot I see for Hendon Hooker is Tampa Bay. I don't see him getting past Tampa Bay. Based on what they need. I think they need a young quarterback. Even what I've said about Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay they're a win now situation. So they should sign a veteran quarterback and draft a quarterback because they need to prepare for now and the future. And Hendon Hooker would be a perfect position for Tampa Bay to get at where Tampa Bay's draft position. As far as they're concerned, as far as the big thing I would be worried about is what do you? And I'm going to ask Joe, since you're watching and you're here in chat. Joe, what do you think in your Seattle? What do you think Seattle does in the draft? Because I've got them penciled in for an interior lineman. I think they go offense. I think they continue to try to beef up that offensive line. So that's what I'm thinking for. That's what I'm thinking for Seattle. I don't think Seattle, but as far as what the Cowboys do, I could see them get, I could see if a guy like Stetson Bennett is available, trade back, get an edge guy. I think at 5 that's not a bad situation. All right, Joe. No. We love great having you here. Like the post, subscribe to the channel because we're going to be doing a lot of other things, especially during the draft. We'll have our draft stuff coming out, and of course we do our show every Thursday. So definitely great to get in touch with you. And anytime you want to come on the program, just get at us, and we'll get you on. We got like I said, we got the phone line that you can call in, and if you want to come in on video, we got that going as well. So, great to have you around. Thanks for coming around, Joe. And as always, we love talking. And you see how this works. This was a perfect example. Thank you, Joe, for jumping in the chat. You see how the chat works. You see how the show works. Doesn't matter that I'm talking about Disney and Marvel. Doesn't matter that I talk about that. Because if you come in and you're like, and you come in and you say, well, I want to talk about, I want to hear you talk more about football. All right, jump in, start chatting with us, and we'll give you the time of day. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what we're doing at the time. We'll stop what we're doing, go to what you're doing, and we'll go back. And we'll circle back. As I was talking about the Mandalorian, and I was pretty much done with the Mandalorian. To finish up my Mandalorian thoughts, the Mandalorian was first episode. It was boring. It was same old, you know. And the one biggest gripe that I have is the one big action of the whole thing was we watched all the Mandalorians, I guess, that are left. We watched them fight some big alligator thing, and they just looked pathetic. Like, this is a Lucasfilm thing. Oh, we'll take what you thought was great and we'll make them look pathetic. They looked absolutely pathetic attacking this thing. It looked dumb. It took me out of the whole show. I was like, all right, well, these guys suck. Why do I even care anymore? Like, and then you see Mando, who's like, I want to get back in. I have to go to this place and I have to swim in this. Oh, that place is destroyed. No, it's not. Okay, go ahead and we'll see what happens. Like, Mando, based on what I saw, why do you even want to be a part of this group? These guys are chumps. Why do you they get owned by an alligator? Like, why do you want to be a part of them? Like, what is going on here? So hopefully you get some retconning in going forward. Hopefully you get something different as this season progresses, but not a good start for the Mandalorian, and just more proof that Disney Star Wars has nothing left to it. It has nothing left to it. So let me address this. Even though he's not on the show anymore, let me just see. Oh, look at that! See, now I can actually show some things. So Joe was in the chat and he said at 5, trade back and then get an edge guy. As far as I'm concerned with Seattle, if they can trade back, it depends on how far you're going to trade back and what's available. At 5, if Will Anderson's available, why wouldn't there's no need to trade back. If Will Anderson's available, you take Will Anderson right then and there. You've got an edge guy right there. He's as edge guy as you can get. And he fits. So depending on what happens in front of them. Now, the way I look at this, and I haven't looked at. I don't know who's picking third off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at my list. But I know second is first is Chicago. We know what Chicago. We know Chicago is trying to trade. They're either trying to trade back. But we know if they stay where they are, they're going to draft a lot. They're going to draft an offensive lineman. If they don't draft an offensive lineman, they're going to get destroyed. So they have to take an offensive lineman. So we know that that's happening. Houston, we know, is taking a quarterback. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know who's third. I don't know who's drafting third, but I know the Colts are at 4. The Colts are probably going to take a quarterback. So as long as whoever's drafting third, as long as if they don't take Will Anderson, you have a good possibility that Will Anderson falls to you at 5. In that case, trading back, yes, you would get. Seattle. It's not like Seattle's hurting for picks. Seattle's got enough picks because of the Russell Wilson deal. I would, if Will Anderson's on the board, that pick would be in before Roger Goodell even gets to the podium. Before he even tells anything, boom. Will Anderson, he can make 4 and 5 right back to back, because if Will Anderson's still on the board, for that way. So that's how I would address that, Joe. All right. Like I said, I'm going to save the baseball stuff for Saturday. We'll do a Saturday edition. We'll do we'll do the baseball stuff on Saturday and maybe talk some more stuff. But now to get to the real problem. So we talked about the Mandalorian, which is kind of a problem, which is only a problem because it's the only Star Wars we have left, and that seems to be dying. But let's get to the biggest problem at Disney, and we'll end the show with the biggest problem at Disney. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but if y'all have, I've seen people talking about this. Jane Theory brought it up a couple days ago. I watched her video on it. I watched Melanie Mack talk about this. I've watched The Drinker talk about this. I've seen everybody's talking about Peter Pan. It is talking about Peter Pan and I forget her name. Let me see if I wrote it in the thing. No, I didn't even. Yeah. Peter Pan and Wendy. Peter Pan and Wendy. And oh my, this movie is the epitome of Disney garbage. First off, let's just get this out of the way. Race swapping Tinkerbell. I mean, for in all intents and purposes, like, who cares? Like, but it's just one thing after another. Like, can't you just leave the characters the way that the characters were drawn? Knowing nothing about what Tinkerbell is in this iteration, you knew the race swap was just going to send people over the edge. I don't really care about it, but to just see it, it just screams of Jesus. Just what? There's no need for it. There's no need to do this. It's not necessary, so why even do it? The question of why. That's the important. Why? Why do it? You're only doing it just to piss people off. And note to the producers, note to the writers, note to the people at Disney. When you piss people off before the movie even comes out, people aren't going to watch your movie. People don't watch movies because they're pissed off. They go, well, that pisses me off. I'm not watching this garbage. And that's where I stand. But not because of this. I could care less. You're talking about, now, look, I have no problem with you telling a Peter Pan story. I have no problem with that. One of the greatest, I love the original Peter Pan. I love Hook. I love some of the other Peter Pans. My favorite iteration of Peter Pan comes from Once Upon a Time. I have, the only reason I still have a Disney Plus account, well, the only reason I have a Disney Plus account is because it's hooked to my Hulu and ESPN. So I get, I pay one flat fee for all three. And that's really the only reason. The only reason I tune into Disney Plus is so that I can watch old versions of Once Upon a Time, because it's one of my favorite shows of all time. It's one of my favorite shows because you're talking to somebody who I love fairy tale. I love fairy tales. I love the old school Disney fairy tales. And one of the things I loved about Once Upon a Time was how they took the old characters, brought them into the world, and you got to see them reacting. It was really cool. It was awesome. But I loved the version of Peter Pan that they did, where they did the evil version of Peter Pan. And it was really fascinating. It was a different side of Peter Pan that we got to see, where it wasn't, oh, Peter Pan is they made Hook the protagonist, and they made Peter Pan the antagonist, who was just out trying to kidnapping people, basically. He was kidnapping people, making them into the Lost Boys. And I just thought it was an interesting arc on the character. And there are inclinations of that. There are stories about Peter Pan being the villain in the story, and it was fun to see that. But in this, that bringing up the Lost Boys is what brings this Peter Pan and Wendy. It's what brings this over the top. And Melanie Mack said this the best. Melanie Mack, awesome. Another YouTuber. She's got millions of thousands of followers. If you haven't checked in on her, go check out Melanie Mack. She's really cool, really fun. Great gamer. And she talks about all this kind of stuff. She's fun to listen to. I check her out from time to time. But I will say, I laughed out loud when she was watching the trailer, and she said, Lost Boys? They're boys. Why are there girls? And she just was dumbfounded. Same way I was when I watched this trailer. And I was like, and even the movie, the trailer points this out. They point it out. They go, the character Wendy goes, Lost Boys? But you're not all boys. And it goes to the two girls, and they're like, so? And I'm like, oh my God. How did you get this wrong? How did you decide this was a good idea? They're the Lost Boys for a reason. Because they're boys. They're not, what are we doing? What are we doing? They're not the lost people. They're not the lost ones. They're the Lost Boys. It's in the title. It's in the title. Lost Boys. It's not hard to figure out. And how you made this, how you screwed this up, I don't know. But yeah, apparently the Lost Boys are apparently boys and girls now. Makes no sense. You've already made something that makes no sense that I'm going to go, I don't care about this, because you've done this for no reason at all. What possible reason could you have to say, well, some of the Lost Boys were actually girls? And the reason why this is important is because in the story of Peter Pan, the Lost Boys are with Peter Pan because they don't want to grow up. They want to stay as boys. They want to stay in the fantasy world. And Wendy is the one, as the girl, who gives them the push to say, look, I know you want to stay in this world, but this world is not going to be any better if you stay here. It only gets better if you go out and go out into the real world and achieve something out of the real world, then this fantasy always stays as a fantasy to you. And it stays as your, it stays that way, gets them to want to leave. That's why they leave, because Wendy gives them all of that advice. And in the original Peter Pan storyline, they actually say that. They actually say the boys go into this because boys are more easily tricked into this than the girls are, because the girls think about this kind of stuff and the boys don't. It actually puts girls ahead of boys, and why they decided to go against that, I can't explain it. I can't explain this. It's absolutely insane what they're doing with this iteration. But it's what this is what Disney does. They take a simple story. They decide, oh, we're going to change everything about it. And you know what? When people complain, they go, oh, well, you just start complaining because you just don't like so-and-so. No, it's because we enjoyed the original story. We enjoyed the original story. We thought you were giving us the original story, and you're not. So if 10 seconds. So if we tune out on this, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when people are upset. Don't be surprised when your trailer gets 53,000 likes and 135 dislikes. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised anymore. I'm not telling you like it or dislike. Like, if you want to check this out, by all means, check it out and check in with us. Tell us whether you liked it or not. I'll tell you right now, I don't care. I'm not gonna check this garbage out. I already know what it's gonna be. So and for a lot of people, they would say, oh, I'm going to check. I don't want to check this out, but I'm going to, because for content for my channel, I could care less about content. Okay. I have enough content to talk about. I don't need to go out of my way to watch something I don't want to watch that I know is going to be garbage, just so I can get some hate likes and, get people on my side because I watched something that was garbage. If I watch something that's garbage, I'll tell you it's garbage. But if I go into it knowing it's garbage, I'm not going to get upset and complain about how garbage it is. I'm going to watch something because I think because I like it and I want to see it. And if it's not up to my expectations, I'm going to tell you that. Same thing we did with Quantumania. Same thing we are doing with Wakanda Forever, which is still not done yet. I still haven't completed that review yet, which will happen. A lot of things to come, but as I look at my battery life on my laptop here, it's going down, and we're about out of juice. So with that, I'm going to say good night to y'all. Great show. Thanks for Rod for checking in. Thanks to Joe for checking in the chat. As I said, like, subscribe, do all those things, help get us going here. As we get working, I've got some stuff in the works that I cannot say right now, but I am working on some other stuff. Hopefully we get some of that going, as we're now in the off season as far as football goes, as far as college football, but we are in the draft season. So we'll have a lot of draft stuff coming up. Of course, next week we'll have results from the combine, what the results tell us, what prospects we're looking at, and more of that as we go. And I'm sure by the time we get on here next week, I'm sure there will be more garbage entertainment to talk about. As we go, of course, we'll get Mandalorian episode 2. So we'll get that going. And all of that stuff. Saturday, I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can get some guys to come on the show and talk some baseball with me. As we talk about these baseball rules, I'll see what's going on there. And we'll do some of that. So that's the schedule going forward. We're kind of just winging it here, doing our thing, and we'll keep going. So to y'all out there, have a great night, have a great week. We'll talk to you next time, hopefully Saturday. Of course, to everybody out there, Saturday morning, you'll see me in Jane Theory's thread. To the guys there, Kryptonian, Jedi, and all the other guys there. I'm starting to learn some of your names, so we'll give you shout outs on this program as well. But we'll be in there. So check out Jane Theory's Saturday morning chats. We always get the chat going. The show is 9 to 11. We're usually in the chat at like 7 o'clock, and usually by that time we've banged out like 30 chats, just back and forth of talking about whatever's going on. I'm sure we'll talk Mandalorian. I'm sure we'll talk about this Peter Pan garbage. Who knows what we talk about in those. It's a fun time. So everybody, go over to that program, check that out, and we'll join you there. We'll be there. And then after Jane's program, we'll set up our program sometime. We'll come back. We'll do a Saturday free for all, and we'll get this thing going right. So we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. And as always, as we always say on this program, let me get it before we get kicked off. As we always say on this program, everything we say, when you hear it, just remember this.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.